This program is made possible through the generous underwriting grants of Hatter, Williams & Purdy Insurance Services of Oceanside, providing North County with complete insurance needs for more than half a century. The TriQuest Corporation, providing quality office and manufacturing space in Oceanside. McCabe's Bridge Ocean View Restaurant for fine dining while overlooking the harbor and the Pacific Ocean. And the North County Times, serving all of North County with complete local daily news coverage and internet services. Welcome to another edition of Living Legacies. I'm Tom Morrow, your host, and today's guest is Willie Hauser. Willie is a retired executive chef, probably one of the best-known chefs across the country. He spent 20 years as executive chef of La Costa Resort and spent a little time up in the New England states before retiring. Welcome to the show, Willie.
Nice to be here.
We, of course, you've got quite a story to tell with your cooking, and you were European trained. You spent you came to this country in the mid '50s, but I want to go back a little bit further than that. You were born in Germany in 1932.
That's correct.
And Hitler came to power in '33. What was it like growing up in Nazi Germany?
Well, let me tell you, it was. As a child, you did not understand the whole reason behind the whole thing. All I remember is days with lots of flags had to be flown, and I recall my father had to make sure he got up very early in the morning and hang out the flag, because if you didn't have the flag out at a certain time, members of the party in uniform would knock at your door and make sure you hang up the flag. But it was not a difficult time for me or for us kids at that time.
What kind of work did your father do?
My father was a tailor, and a very good one, and so was my grandfather. The difficult times came towards the end of the war.
Where were you born?
I was born in a little town called Emmendingen, which is in the southwestern part of Germany, in the foothills of the Black Forest and the Rhine Valley.
That's right near France?
Absolutely, right near Alsace, near the Rhine River. It was in Breisach on the Rhine where the German armies built the Westwall fortifications. And I was a child, I believe it was in 1940, could have been 41. I saw Adolf Hitler, but only very, very briefly. He came to visit these fortifications, and he wore his hat so deep over his eyes, you could not see his eyes. This I still remember very well. And I was a member of the youth movement. I wore my uniform, black short pants, a brown shirt, and a leather strap across the front. And I was standing way up front. My parents were behind me, and my oldest brother, Charlie, he was with me too.
Now, there's been a lot of talk over the years that the Hitler Youth group was a lot like the Boy Scouts, but that's not exactly true. Is it? You didn't really? Did you have a choice? Could you choose to join or not join?
My parents were members of the Nazi Party. I believe they joined in the early in the mid-1930s. I was not a member of the Hitler Youth. I was with the young folk.
What's the difference?
The young folk, they were very young, you know. You joined when you were 9 years old, and then once you reached the age of 14, then you joined the Hitler Youth.
I see.
Which was more militarily directed, whilst the young folk, we met once a week on a Wednesday always, and met on the school grounds and did marching and stuff. But we never handled any weapons or nothing.
What kind of things would they teach you, or what kind of things would you learn?
Well, of course, the first thing we had to learn was Hitler's life story. That he was born in Braunau on the Inn River, that his father was a custom official, and of course the way we believed that man was next to God. We had to sing songs. For us, it was kind of nice, you know. I mean, you come from a little town, and every Wednesday and Sundays, many times, we were able to march through town and sing our songs. We did a lot of soccer playing. Swimming, a lot of physical education was involved, hiking in the woods. So it was very healthy, it was very good. The only time my parents objected was when they had those things on a Sunday morning, because my family were very strict Lutherans, and we went to church on Sunday morning. And sometimes you couldn't go to church because of that.
So they were pretty strict about you showing up.
They were. They would have 2 men standing at each entrance to the church, and they would tell who didn't wear the uniform and came for the exercises and went to church instead. So,
what kind of news or what kind of propaganda were they putting out during the war about what was going on in the other parts of the world, or how Germany was doing in the war?
Well,
or were you aware of the war?
What I was aware of was all that loud screaming by when Adolf Hitler was on the radio, and the mass hysteria, more or less. I remember we had, and still have in my hometown, a huge hall where all kinds of functions would take place. And most of those affairs would take place in there. You know, it held a few hundred people. And the band was always playing the German national anthem. And then following that one, right away, the Horst Wessel Lied, which was, Horst Wessel was a very early follower of Adolf Hitler, which goes back to the that putsch in Munich, in that beer restaurant, you know.
Right.
I must say, a lot of what I know now, I learned after I came to America in 1956. I did a lot of reading, because towards the end of the war, and the end of the war was very distorted, and as I told you the other night, in 1944, the summer of 1944, it was imminent that the Allies were advancing fast. And our town has been targeted to be shelled by artillery.
Why was that?
Well, in our town there was a big factory called Rami, and Rami is a fiber and used to make materials. Well, they made parachutes.
Uniforms, that sort of thing?
Yes. And so in order to save the young people, we were put into very nice camps, you know, resort hotels, which were not used at that time.
How old were you when this happened?
12. We had plenty food to eat. We were, but of course the commander and the assistants were all officials of the National Socialistic Party.
This was kind of a plan all through Germany. The youth was treated extra special, weren't they, at that time?
Oh, yes.
And that was because?
Well, we were the future of the land, you know, and we lived real well, but we didn't know what went on. When you're 12 years old, you don't care much about politics.
Yeah.
We knew there was a war going on, and we knew that Germany was winning. That's all we knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I recall the day.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. When the news came out that President Roosevelt had died, it was at breakfast time. And all us students or the young boys, and I remember we were only boys, just males. We were having breakfast, and the commander sat on a special table a little bit in a corner with his assistant. And all I remember so well was that all of a sudden, you know, the radio was on. Mm-hmm. We had to listen. This was every day we had to listen to the news. And all of a sudden, the commander jumped up on the chair, then on the table with all the dishes, and he made crazy gestures, you know, that the president of America has died.
This was April the 12th, 1945.
45.
Mm-hmm.
And
but at this point in time, the news, as you were receiving it over the radio, was it still positive that Germany was winning, or was there any? Did you notice any change in?
Well,
do you remember any change?
The word always came up that they had a secret weapon, and
they mean Germany.
Yes, that this would create victory at the end. But we also knew that the Allies were advancing.
How did you know this?
Well, you know, you could hear it in the news. You know, I mean, they would say that the Allied troops have landed in
Normandy.
In Normandy, but right away they would say, "But we kick them back in the water the way we did in Dunkirk."
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't see too many planes flying over that particular area, but I remember weeks before I went to this camp how the sky looked like silver. I have never seen so many aeroplanes in the sky at the same time. And this was the day when they went to bomb Schweinfurt. You might know there was a...
Schweinfurt was a big ball bearing center, wasn't it?
Yeah, manufacturing, right. And, of course, by that time, you didn't see any German fighter aircraft, you know.
It just is ironic that Schweinfurt was the raid that there was 1,000 planes in the air that day. My uncle was a B-17 pilot, and he was shot down that day and spent the rest of the war in a prison camp.
He was shot down. This happened many times. Every day, just about every day, we would go up and stand on a balcony and look up in the sky and see all those thousands and thousands of planes. It was an incredible sight.
What was going through your mind, even as a 12-year-old?
Well, we knew that a lot of people would get killed. Mm-hmm. A lot of devastation would take place. My parents were very sad and tried to tell us what's going to happen to people in other parts. We didn't understand too much of it. Our town got bombed only 3 or 4 times, but by light aircraft. They tried to hit the main rail line. Mm-hmm. They never did. Those trains kept on running. I know that. Mm-hmm. But that factory where they made all the textiles it got completely bombed.
How was living conditions back during that time? Did you have plenty to eat, or was oil, that sort of thing?
You know, it all took place so gradually. First of all, you couldn't get any butter or cheese. Milk was rationed. No sugar. White flour was very hard to find. Forget things like oranges and bananas. They came from foreign countries. Mm-hmm. That stopped real soon. Mm-hmm. But then also where we lived, this is agricultural country, a lot of farmers around there. Not farms like we have here in America, big spreads. No, those are smaller places. But we always had vegetables. We had meat maybe twice a week, but we had enough to eat. We never went hungry. And I remember rather well when our mother said one day, oh, I got a recipe for a new cake, and Frau so-and-so said it's really good, made out of carrots. So that's when I had my first carrot cake, and it tasted awful. And in 1950,
there was no sugar.
Yeah, in 1956, when I came to America, I had my first job in New Jersey and then in New York City. I went out with friends, and somehow I saw carrot cake. And I thought, oh, my God, not in America. And I took a bite, and it was delicious. And I still like carrot cake. So, of course, what we made at that time had nothing to do with the carrot cake we serve now. And then it got progressively worse, I must say. Then
when you went to the camp, how long were you up in that camp?
It was the summer of 44 till April of 45. As a matter of fact, the day I came home from this camp was April the 20th, which was Hitler's birthday.
Because you know that date, right?
Oh, well, you never forget, you know. Yeah. I still today, I'm 67 years old, I still remember. Come April the 20th, you can't get it out of your mind, you know.
Yeah. Well, how did you get from the camp? Did you... I understand you walked back from your camp?
Yeah, that was a bad experience, very bad.
What happened on the way?
Well, what happened was on the 19th of April, we were informed by the deputy commander that the commander has left, so we didn't know where he was.
He went over the hill.
Yes, yeah, he took off real fast. And so he said, well, we got to walk. We got to leave camp. You have to go home because the troops are coming. And this was very confusing to us because as kids, we believed that Germany is going to win that war. And I remember that morning we packed our rucksacks, our backpacks, and we marched down into town. And then from there we were to be transported by trucks to the next big city, which was Freiburg. And we were by then around 25 kids, and we still carried our little flag. Oh yeah, wouldn't let go of it. And then we were told we cannot drive by truck to Freiburg because Freiburg just has been bombed, which is the next big city. And it looked bad. We saw devastation and dead people, and something that at a 12-year-old you...
Is that the first really war devastation you had seen?
And the terrible smell of the Brandbomben, which is incendiary bombs, there's a smell in the air of sulfur or whatever. Well, anyway, we got through town, and all of a sudden the deputy commander was gone.
He took over.
He took off. So here we were, and there was a whole column of German soldiers passing by on all kinds of vehicles, and we were able, my friends and I, we wore uniforms and carried our flag too. And we were able to stop them and get a ride to a town close to our hometown where we were supposed to go to. In the meantime, our parents knew that we were coming home, and they were worried because the French army was very close. You could hear the artillery fire and all. And I have a relative in this particular town, which was just about a half an hour from my hometown, and they had a little. They were peasants, they had a few cows and stuff. Well, anyway, so we spent the night in the stables, and next morning we marched along on the 20th of April then, and when we came close to our hometown, our town is surrounded by a little river. In order to get there, you must get across a bridge. And we were waved back and told, no, you can't make it. We're going to blow the bridge.
Who was going to blow the bridge?
And we had to...
Who was going to blow the bridge?
German soldiers. And so on the other side of the bridge, we could see our parents. Mm-hmm. And somehow they were able to convince them to let us get across the bridge and then blow it up. Mm-hmm. And which they did. And, well, it was nice to see our parents. We haven't seen them in a half a year. And we had to go for cover then right away.
Bombing started?
Well, artillery.
I see.
At the entrance of our town, there was a barricade erected to hold back tanks. Mm-hmm. And there was a white flag, which people put up, you know. And then came an officer, could have been SS or whatever, and he, with his machine gun, and he forced the people who stood there to take the flag down. And the French sent word, if that white flag goes down, we start shooting. And the moment that flag, that could have been a bedsheet, came down, they started shooting. And then our part of town got hit real bad. Mm-hmm. It's fires all over the place. Was
your home destroyed?
No. Well, not destroyed, but it got damaged quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I recall one incident. My father and my oldest brother and myself and another gentleman from the fire department asked us two boys to come along to help them, you know, connect hoses, mm-hmm. which we knew how to do. But we had to get over on Main Street, and that's when I saw a tank for the first time. And fighting soldiers sitting on top.
Was it a German tank or a French tank?
Oh no, that was French.
Yeah. And the French eventually occupied.
They took over our area of Germany, mm-hmm. and the soldiers were all either from Morocco, Algiers. Mm-hmm. I saw my first black person in my life then, mm-hmm. and as my father and his colleague from the fire department stood there ready to connect to a hydrant, a soldier came and aimed his rifle at my father and at his friend or his colleague, because they were wearing helmets, you know, mm-hmm. but they all had the insignia on it. Mm-hmm. You know, Schwarz-Weiß-Rot, black, red, and white, and the swastika.
Yeah.
And those soldiers didn't know that.
They didn't know the
fire department.
Yeah.
But when my father's friend took off his helmet and he held it like a soccer ball and he kicked it in a corner, those soldiers thought that was very funny. And
these are soldiers from Morocco?
Yeah, I guess so. And, well, they looked like, you know, they were black. Uh-huh. And then we were able to fight the fire. Mm-hmm.
So what happened after the peace was declared? Now, how did you get that word that the war was over?
Well, first of all, when I think back now from what I read in books later on after I came mm-hmm. to America, Hitler by that time was dead. Mm-hmm. He already had committed suicide then in his bunker. Mm-hmm. And we knew that once the French were here, it was all over. Mm-hmm. Then for a while food was very scarce. But pretty soon there came order in the whole system again, mm-hmm. and things returned almost, well, not back to normal, but you had to help yourself with what you could get. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And my father, as a tailor, first he made uniforms for the Nazis, and then he made uniforms for the French a few days later. And a funny thing happened. My father was given by the German army huge bales of material, which I would compare with the material you use for blue jeans.
Yeah.
And
denim. Yeah.
Yes, and all I remember was that towards the end of the war, towards the 20th of April, our beds for my two brothers and I got always higher and higher. So what my father did, he knew it was all over, and he would cut up just the right size and put it in under our beds, you know, on the mattress. And so he knew once the war was over that he could make clothes, you know.
He needed to save the material.
Yeah, he wanted to save everything. We also had a French prisoner of war working with my dad, who was, this gentleman was also a tailor. And he lived in our house, he ate at our table, and became a friend of the family. And my father let him listen to the radio late at nights, which could have resulted in my father's death, easy.
Yeah.
If the Nazis
Listen to Allied broadcasts?
He did. And he told my father long before the 20th of April, he said, Fritz, it's all over. It's finished.
Did your dad believe him?
Yeah, he did. That's when he started cutting up the material and put it on our mattresses.
Well, listen, Willie, we're almost out of time. I told you this 30 minutes ago was real fast. When you, what year, how old were you when you went to become a chef?
I started in 47, serving an apprenticeship, went to hotel trade school, and then worked in Switzerland, England, Sweden, and met an officer of the United States Navy, and he says, Willie, you got to come to America, we need good cooks. So I decided I go to America.
Well, I know you've worked for some of the biggest hotels in the country and have done a lot of cooking. We're out of time. I just want to say that you finished up your career at what country club?
At Worcester Country Club in Worcester, Massachusetts.
And that was
lovely old New England country club.
And you retired at what year?
In 96.
96. Well, we're glad that you're back here at home. You live in La Costa and overlooking the resort that you once were executive chef of for about 21 years.
Yeah.
We thank you very much, Willie, for sharing your wartime experiences. And I'm Tom Morrow, and I hope that you've enjoyed this edition of Living Legacies. And we'll see you next time here on KOCT's Living Legacies.
This program is made possible through the generous underwriting grants of Hatter, Williams & Pretty Insurance Services of Oceanside, providing North County with complete insurance needs for more than half a century. The TriQuest Corporation, providing quality office and manufacturing space in Oceanside. McCabe's Bridge Ocean View Restaurant for fine dining while overlooking the harbor and the Pacific Ocean. And the North County Times, serving all of North County with complete local daily news coverage and internet services.